She's the luckiest mercenary in Marvel Comics. We're talking about Nina Thurman, aka Domino. Wait a second. That's not Domino. That's the most skilled shapeshifter in Marvel Comics, Vanessa Carlysle, aka Copycat. Hi, I'm Nando, and in these videos I take a character from Marvel Comics, I talk about their backstory, their power set, their personality, and I give you some reading recommendations. And this is all because this week this character is being introduced into the collectible card game Marvel Snap. So that means most of the Vanessa stuff is the first 80% of this video, and the Marvel Snap stuff is the last 20. Vanessa Carlysle is an interesting one because if you've seen either Deadpool or Deadpool 2, you'll be familiar with this character. She's played by NITPICKING, and she is Deadpool's girlfriend slash wife slash dead wife slash resurrected wife. In the comics, her origin is similar, but everything else is very different. So the character Vanessa Carlysle shows up in comics after she is actually introduced, because the first appearance of this character, Copycat, is in New Mutants 98. It's written by Rob Liefeld, Fabian Nicieza, with art by Liefeld, Steve Buscalato, and Joe Rosen. However, in those books, she is a different character. She is, in fact, Domino, and for the beginning of Copycat's comic career, she is posing as Domino. Now, for a lot of the beginning of that run, it doesn't really matter. Domino is just doing Domino things. But eventually, certain characters start showing up and it falls apart. And then she actually becomes Vanessa Carlysle, aka Copycat. But the technical first appearance of this character is that New Mutants book. So here's her backstory. She's born in New Brunswick, New Jersey, and her name is Vanessa Carlysle. Now, I don't know a lot of Carlyles, but I do think because she's from New Jersey, I don't even know she's NITPICKING in the movies, but I read her as very Italian, Tony Soprano type, because that's what I do when I learn the characters from New Jersey. Like, they all become gabagool no matter what they actually sound like. Also, quick tangent, I had not watched The Sopranos until recently. I kind of thought the gabagool thing was just a meme, right? Like, maybe it happened a couple times in the show, but it even could be one of those things where it's like, actually, they never said gabagool in the whole first 3 seasons. No, episode 1, these older Italian-American dudes are talking about the gabagool, which for people that don't know is capicola, which is a different, it's like a meat, but they call it that. Anyway. So she gets her powers, she gets kicked out of her house, and her life falls apart, so obviously that leads her to Boston, where she becomes a sex worker. And this is the 90s in comics. I thought they were being very cool and edgy. As a sex worker, she's able to transform into different people, so like you can see how that would be valuable in that line of work. Eventually, she meets Wade Wilson. So Wade Wilson at this point is not Deadpool, he is a mercenary, and they have a relationship, and it's going pretty well until he gets his cancer diagnosis. And then, like in the first Deadpool movie, he leaves her and he's like, it's gonna be too terrible. I don't want to put you through that, whatever. So after that, Vanessa becomes a mercenary. She starts working for a person named Tolliver, who's like one of the big mercenary bosses. And this assignment that we were talking about before, she has to replace Domino. Now, she believes Domino is dead. She's just taken the place of Domino. But realistically, Tolliver has Domino in his like prison. So it's not quite as bad of a thing that she did. I mean, she's still like infiltrating, X-Force. So like that's not good. But still, it's, she's not as bad of a character as you may expect. But so I guess that just means like she's a character who is a mercenary and will spy on people, but does have morals, has a line she won't cross. And she fits right in, which is great because Cable is going to integrate the New Mutants into X-Factor and like create this team. But he needs somebody to lead the team while he's gone. He's like, oh my God, Domino, my good friend, you're in charge of this. This is going to be great. And she's like, oh yeah, this is what I do because I'm Domino. And it goes amazing for her. And I know what you're thinking. Wait a second, Cable is a telepath. And like, he doesn't use his abilities that much because of the techno-organic virus and all that. But like, he should be able to figure out that's not her, right? She's also hanging out with Warpath and Feral, characters that have enhanced senses. Can none of them pick up on the fact that she is not Domino? Well, Copycat, and we'll get to it, maybe just the best shapeshifter in Marvel Comics. And definitely the best on Earth. Because if she has copied someone, there's nothing you can do to figure out that it's not them. Like, any enhanced senses won't pick it up, mind reading won't pick it up, and she can copy mutant genes. So like, someone like Mystique, yeah, she can fake being Cyclops for a while until she has to use the optic blast and then it all falls apart. Vanessa could do that. So she can fit in so well. It's going okay for her until Deadpool shows up. Now, Vanessa's got a heart of gold, she has lines she won't cross, and she likes being a part of X-Force, so she doesn't immediately betray them, which means Tolliver has to send Deadpool. Now, this appearance of Deadpool, this is the first time we really get a sense for that something's up with Domino, because Deadpool's like, Vanessa, I get it, I know what you're doing, but you gotta do what Tolliver sent you to do. Like, you can't mess around here, because Deadpool was also sent by Tolliver. This leads to Vanessa as Domino being outed as a spy, but they still don't know she's not Domino. They think Domino is just a spy. So Cable doesn't trust her, but eventually he takes her to Tolliver's place and they find the real Domino. And she's all locked up and tortured and stuff. And I swear, like by the end of this issue, it is unclear if Cable ever kind of figured out what happened. Like later he'll know, but like in the issue, it's like, oh my God, there's 2 Dominoes. And then Vanessa manages to sneak away. And at the end of the issue, Cable, who has rescued the real Domino now, is like, Domino, go lead X Factor. I'm going to go die in a helicopter crash or whatever. And she's like, okay, I don't really know what that is, but I'm sure I'll be able to figure it out. Because she's not the Domino that has been working with him this whole time. And like he hadn't figured that out yet, which I think is funny. I would say this, for me, is her most interesting story arc. Because it's just something you've always wanted to see in comics. Like I think that is a fun gimmick. And I wish I was reading this comic as it was playing out. It was like, wait a second. There was never any indication that this character was not Domino until another character's like, you're not Domino. And it's like, whoa, who's that? Well, then what is going on? You know, a little bit of time passes, she moves in with a friend of hers, tries to copy her identity, which she is able to do, and we'll get to exactly how. But she runs into Deadpool and another mercenary who accidentally killed a friend. Deadpool manages to catch Vanessa, but they're intercepted by Domino, Grizzly, and Hammer. And now Domino, who hates Vanessa because Vanessa impersonated her for a while, has to work with Vanessa, and it's like one of those uneasy alliances, but like, you know, Vanessa kind of feels bad about it, and also like things aren't going great for her. She is able to sneak away again, and then she tries to start another new life. Vanessa gets involved in another Tolliver plot because Tolliver dies and they have to find Tolliver's will. A character named Slayback captures her and uses her as bait to get Deadpool to come to him. She is nearly killed, but Deadpool lets her use his healing factor so that she can heal herself. So again, these characters used to have some animosity, now they're cool. She did eventually manage to squash the beef with Domino as well. After a villain named Psycho Man kidnapped her and took her to the microverse, Cable, Kane, and Domino went to save her, and they had a little bit at the end where like, hey, sorry for stealing your identity forever. And now they're, I guess, cool. And I would say those are like the most significant things she did. That time period was really when Vanessa was happening in comics. And this character hasn't had more than like 50 or 60 appearances, so like not the most significant Marvel character. She also worked with Taskmaster and the Wizard to impersonate Titania to trick Deadpool, but it didn't work because Deadpool can see through that, which seems to suggest that Deadpool's the only character that can really see through her disguises just because he knows her so well. Okay, her last story. So she joins Weapon X. She's trying to bring Deadpool into Weapon X. That's her mission. They give her like power enhancements and they kind of mess with her brain, and she kind of forgets about that and just starts hanging out with Deadpool. And they like fall back in love. It's kind of funny because at this point Deadpool's with Siren, and you can tell Copycat's not the most together of the Marvel Comics characters because she poses as Deadpool to get close to Siren to beat up Siren until they tell her stay away from Deadpool. So I don't know, that's a pretty crazy thing to do. Eventually, Kane, the assassin, not the Spider-Man, is sent to get Vanessa. It's all a ruse so that Sabretooth can actually get Vanessa, and he does kill her. So she dies in that comic. So as far as we knew, she died and stayed dead until Deadpool's wedding to Shikla the vampire, and that story is complicated, but there's a lot of like little vignette issues in there written by different people. One of them is told from Wade's perspective. After Vanessa died, he had a sock puppet that he pretended was Vanessa and like talked to her, even pretended that like he saved Vanessa and they got married, which was never a thing in the comics. They dated, but she's not his wife. So clearly he was kind of losing it, and this is Deadpool, so that's par for the course. Eventually, he got over it. The sock puppet also died, but also this is the origin of Deadpool's love affair with chimichangas, which is something that in the comics Deadpool is all about. He gets them from a food truck near him, and he's like, what is this? And they're like, chimichangas, oh great, and he loves it, and he gets them all the time. It turns out that the person running that truck is Vanessa in disguise, and she's hanging around just to make sure that Deadpool's okay. And once it's clear that Deadpool has moved on, Vanessa's like, okay, I'm good. And then she leaves, and we have not seen her since. Obviously, like that took place in the distant past, but still, like, presumably she's out there somewhere. And it's funny because this character exists like almost exclusively in the 90s. There aren't a lot of good images of her that appear modern. So like almost every article about Copycat or video or something uses the exact same image, which is her in the taco truck going like everything's cool. But that really isn't what she usually looks like. She has big frizzy white hair a lot of the time because it was the 90s. She does have blue skin and she has pointy ears, but it's funny, she has a different like shade of blue. Mystique, I would say, is a darker blue, whereas Vanessa's a lighter blue. She also has red eyes, which is cool. Those are fun. Okay, so her superpower, Vanessa's a shapeshifter. And I'm sure you're already familiar with plenty of Marvel shapeshifters. I would say the big three, not counting Vanessa, are Mystique, obviously, Chameleon, and Morph. So Chameleon is just a normal guy, although sometimes he has superpowers, but like more or less he's just really good at blending in and taking people's places. Mystique obviously has superpowers where she can change her shape to mimic anyone and she can become a near perfect copy. However, she cannot mimic the actual superpowers that person has. Morph also can't do that, but he can kind of change his body composition so that he can sort of replicate some superpowers. So like in X-Men 97, he turns into a Hulk, and like conceivably he could do that. He's probably not as strong as the Hulk because he's not powered by gamma radiation, but like he's about as muscular and durable as the Hulk is. I do think like most of the transformations he does in X-Men 97 are all physical, right? Like he turns into Angel or he turns into Blob or Juggernaut. I would say the one that I think kind of breaks like what Morph usually can do is Quicksilver, just because, and I said this in the video when I was talking about that show, Quicksilver doesn't have super legs. Like it's not a physical thing. Quicksilver almost like has a connection to the Speed Force. So I wouldn't say that counts as a physical superpower Morph can copy. But whatever, that's nitpicking. Not unlike my podcast, mostly nitpicking. But neither of those characters, Mystique or Morph, can actually copy like the genetic code and superpowers. Mystique has been able to change some of her DNA. Specifically, she was able to impregnate Destiny and create Nightcrawler, which is something we learned recently. So whatever that was better than what Mystique can usually do. And also Mystique's one of those characters that's kind of fluctuated. I feel like she's gotten like power boosts over time. Copycat can copy everything. She can copy your look, she can copy like your mind, and she can copy your superpowers. To do this, she usually has to spend a lot of time with the people who she is copying. Now, like if she sees someone, or especially if she's able to touch them, she can duplicate their appearance pretty quickly, but to mimic their superpowers, she would need to hang around a character for a while. Once she's absorbed everything from them, like copied all of their genetic information, then Copycat can just fully transform into them and make a near perfect copy with all of their superpowers. I would assume there are limits to this. I don't think in the comics, because this character has not had a humongous run, we've like seen the limits of Copycat, but like I don't think you could put Copycat next to like Galactus for a week and then get a second Galactus. Like I know that the Galactus example is like a little silly, but I don't think she could copy like someone like Apocalypse and just be as big as Apocalypse. She seems to have to be about the same size as characters who are that. Although Apocalypse is an interesting one because Apocalypse has complete molecular control over his own body. So hypothetically, she could transform into Apocalypse, like Copycat into him, and then use his mutant ability to grow to be the size you would expect Apocalypse to be. I don't know, she's never tried it because she hasn't done that much stuff. I think there's a case to be made that she's the most powerful teleporter in Marvel Comics. I think she's better than all those Earth ones I named. I think she's better than Skrulls because she can also take superpowers. Like I'm sure there are other characters that have been able to do this, like a reality warper or something could turn into a perfect copy. Like Cersei in a video we did recently was able to transmute herself into a perfect copy of Makari, but then she was gone, so that took a lot from her. And B, she can't turn back, but like Vanessa can. Honestly, like Vanessa's one of those characters where it's like, you have the best power, and this is what you're doing with it, like, apply yourself. You could do so much cool stuff. You could be like a top tier X-Men, considering how useful you are, or spy, or whatever it is she wants to be. But yeah, I think I wouldn't be surprised if after Deadpool and Wolverine, we get more Vanessa, because just people like that character and Marina Baccarin is popular. I kind of think, having not seen the movie yet, they'll probably give her superpowers or like do a nod to that at some point. And if they do, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if she shows up, kind of like Negasonic, just gets a role in ongoing Deadpool comics. And I also think in the movies, they do portray her as more like Deadpool's one true love. In the comics, that's not as big of a deal. They like each other and they had a thing together, but there are other relationships Deadpool has had. He is not like, I wouldn't say he's like a womanizer like some characters are, but he's not like a one woman man. It seems like it's kind of how a lot of these characters end up in the movies. It's like you make an Iron Man comic and he's, flirting with all the women. Then you make the movie and you pick one, and then that people like that pairing, so they don't want to break that up, and then that becomes like almost the one true pairing. And Vanessa, because of the movie, probably has a reputation, but among comics fans, it's not really a thing. So I would say my 3 reading recommendations for Vanessa. I would read 1 issue of that X Factor book. Specifically, I would read the one where Deadpool shows up and is like, dude, Vanessa, what are you doing? You got to get to work. She's like, what are you talking about? I'm Domino. Like that issue's good. I think that's interesting because that's the first time that happened in those books. Other than that, I think there is an origin issue that she has that explains her backstory. So that's Deadpool Volume 3, Number 1, written by Joe Kelly, with art by Aaron Lopresti, Rachel Dodson, Digital Chameleon, Chris Lichtner, Audrey Shaw, and Richard Starkings. The issue where Vanessa is discovered by Deadpool is X-Force 11. It's written by Fabian Nicieza and Rob Liefeld, with art by Mark Pancella, Dan Panosian, Steve Bucalato, and Chris Iliopoulos. And then the last one I would say is that wedding issue. Now this issue is split up by a million writers. So I would say Purpit is just with the hand I be wed. It's very short. I think you could read, I think that book is good. I really enjoyed that run actually, but this is like the only Vanessa story in there. It's written by Fabian Nicieza with art by Scott Hepburn, Val Staples, and Joe Sabino. And yes, in Deadpool, Vanessa is played by Marina Baccarin. They have pretty much the same origin as that first couple of pages of what Vanessa's deal is, but there's no superpowers. I was sure in Deadpool 1 when Ajax put her in that tube, I was like, oh, she's gonna get her superpowers from this, and then she's gonna be Copycat. That's fun. They didn't do that. I wouldn't be surprised if she shows up in Deadpool 3 with superpowers. It does seem like a Deadpool Wolverine broken up, which is interesting. It's a direction to take. He did bring her back to life at the end of 2, and they had a kid, but I don't know where that comes together in this movie. I haven't seen it yet, but she does seem to have some presence. In Marvel Snap, Copycat is currently, I have to say currently because sometimes they change it in the week between when I record the video and when it goes out, cough cough Ajax. Copycat is a 3-cost, 5-power card with the card text, when you draw this, steal the text from the bottom card of your opponent's deck. Okay, so there are a bunch of different shapeshifter powers. Like I said, Morph has been in the game for a while. Mystique has been in the game for a while. We haven't seen Chameleon. I'm surprised because most of the Spider-Man villains are in there. Maybe they're saving it for Kraven. I don't know. And I think I've talked about this before. There's that triangle of Mystique, Morph, and Taskmaster, where based on what their powers are, you should switch what all of them say. Morph should get Taskmaster's ability, Mystique should get Morph's ability, and Taskmaster should get Mystique's ability. I'm sure there's a Reddit post on that or something. I think where she fits in is interesting. So much like Mystique, Copycat is a spy, and a mercenary. I would say obviously Mystique is a better spy than Copycat. That's the one caveat in the Copycat is the best shapeshifter conversation. Mystique is a way better actor and she's way better at performing, but Copycat's never had a real problem with that except for with Deadpool. So I don't think that you can really say that Copycat could not get there if she had to, but that is what Mystique brings to the role. It is what is so special about her. So first of all, I like the Copycat can steal the powers of another card, and it's the bottom of your opponent's deck. So again, she's kind of a mercenary, and she's in intelligence and stuff, so she finds out something about your opponent's deck. I also think it's pretty fun that she steals that card, so it turns into a card that's on your side of the field, or one that you could play, and your opponent doesn't have that anymore. So it is kind of like the Domino thing, where it's she took Domino's place, and it's you can't even still have 2 of them. It's not like Morph, where if Morph was hanging out with the Thing, you could just copy the Thing and you'd have 2 things. The way Copycat works, she takes the place of someone. So that power does sort of get erased from the other card. The one problem with that is you always draw Domino on turn 2, so she will never be the bottom card in your opponent's deck. So the one card, besides Quicksilver, that she cannot copy, I guess there's a couple. Thanos, Agatha, Quicksilver, and Domino, but Domino is the card that she is famous for being able to copy in the books. She is never going to be able to copy that character in Marvel Snap. I think that's kind of funny. What can you do? I think you could give Domino maybe a better power and have some other character be the, guarantee to draw, because Domino is cool and he should have a cooler power. I don't know what it would be. But besides that, I think this is a really fun new take on the Shapeshifter card. I do think just based on all of those things I said, knowing what card your opponent cannot play, getting that card text onto a 3 cost, which could be amazing. And even if your opponent does draw it, they can't play it because that card does not have text anymore. And people have talked about, you do a Copycat and then you do a Korg, puts the rock in the deck, but it also reshuffles, so maybe they will draw a card with no card text on it, so like that's great. But yeah, I think Copycat is like the best card in this season for sure. Even better than Cassandra Nova, who I think is pretty good, and we'll get to her, like certain use cases make her great. But like, I think Copycat is one of those cards, she feels a lot like Red Guardian, where besides just being like an okay card in terms of power level, she's just really useful. And like, I think there's very few decks where I wouldn't think about putting her in, just so I can get that information about my opponent. Like if I can copy their Silver Surfer and I know they're not going to be able to use their Silver Surfer at the end of their game, like that's awesome. That's so good for me. I wouldn't be surprised if they change it so that your opponent can also see what card they copy, because it is just way too much of an advantage. But you know how Snap is a lot of the times, the card's really overpowered and then they get depowered as time goes on. As far as variants, you know, not great, but she does get a Venomized. I do think her Spotlight Cash, the Pandar, while it's cool, is not a really interesting like take on her, the same way that the Hydra Bob one is like amazing. Like it's just a more fun version of that. I wish she was like transforming in it. That would be pretty cool. But you know, whatever. I'm sure they'll come up with a good one for her eventually. Also, this week has Cull Obsidian and Thanos in it, 2 cards that are super useful. So like if this already wasn't the best week, it is now the best week in the Deadpool season. Next week, we're going to be talking about a new card that you can get in a weird way that I still don't completely understand. Cassandra Nova. If you enjoyed this video, share it with your friends, like it, put it on Discord, subreddits, all that stuff, and stay safe, and I will see you next time.